So I wanted to talk today about tax victim shaming. This is something that seems to be a thing amongst agorists in the anarcho-capitalism or voluntarism or freedom movement. And I think it can be summed up by saying, if you can make decisions that lower your tax liability such that you pay less taxes, money that the government then uses to commit atrocities around the world and violate people's consent and do horrible things like, bombing innocent children overseas, then you should. And if you don't, that's wrong. If you woke and you know what the government does is evil, and you don't make decisions that lower your tax liability or make changes in your life that result in paying lower or less or no taxes, that is wrong, that is morally wrong. So I had this discussion recently with somebody who kind of took that sort of moral high ground position of, oh, well, I see you understand all these principles of freedom. Oh, I see that you understand the non-aggression principle. I see that you understand the evil that the government does. And I also see you living in a decent house with a decent car, working in business, attempting to be an entrepreneur, which, I have a pretty high tax liability at times. It comes and goes, obviously, depending on the business ventures I'm involved in at the time. But when you're dealing with large sums of money, the government takes large portions of it frequently. Are there decisions I could make that could lower my tax liability? I had another conversation with somebody that he was basically trying to make the case that, it's certainly possible to go live in the middle of the ocean. Maybe I would have to learn a lot of skills to make that happen. But living out there, my tax liability would become zero and I would not be contributing to the atrocities of the government. I call this tax victim blaming because it's a form of victim blaming. It's a form of inverting the guilty party in the situation. And I would advise everybody to remember this and use it every time in conversation when you're talking with people. Anytime somebody says, you pay taxes, we pay taxes, say, no one pays taxes. Taxes are taken by force against my consent. That is critical. What the thief does with my resources after he violates my consent and property to obtain them is in no way ever my fault. In fact, to modify my life away from how I would prefer to live it as a technology entrepreneur in a city with a decent car, a comfortable car, comfortable toys, to modify my life away from how I want to live it would be to further self-victimize to prevent the government from victimizing me. The example that I gave was one that I've used before, and it kind of illustrates the point. There's a line here between immoral and sort of aesthetically nasty. What I mean by that is, what is evil? The line between what is evil and what is not evil is, what can you use force on somebody for doing? That would be my definition of evil. If something is evil, it means I can use force to stop them or to seek restitution for whatever evil thing they did. If I can't use force on them, then I wouldn't call that thing evil. Now, there's plenty of really nasty, crappy behavior that you can't use force on people when they do it. So things that are not evil, I would call aesthetic, meaning subjective, meaning it's kind of your opinion to judge that behavior as something that you want around you or not, as something that you want to ostracize from your orbit of people and family and friends or not. There's certainly, like I said, plenty of behaviors that you'd want to ostracize someone for. Maybe they're just going around being really nasty and ornery and crappy all the time. It's not something you can just attack them for, but you don't want it around you. It's not evil. It's just aesthetically shitty behavior, I guess is the way to put it, right? And so my point is there's a line. There's evil, and then there's a whole spectrum of aesthetics. Evil is on or off. You either can use force on someone for something or you can't. It's binary. Something is evil or it's not. There's not a spectrum between evil and good. Evil is an on-off switch. The aesthetic thing, that's a spectrum. And good is somewhere in there at the far end, and good can sort of fade away and be more subjective and be more, up to your opinion on the situation. So where does this thing sit? If I choose to not make a decision to lower my tax liability and to modify my life in such a way that I don't want to lower my tax liability, is that evil, or is that somewhere over here on the spectrum? You can certainly not attack someone for living their life the way they want without, I'm not creating victims living the life I want. And that goes back to what I was saying with inverting the guilt for the tax theft. In no way am I ever responsible for my tax victimhood or for the effects of the actions of those tax thieves. So I'm not creating victims by choosing a lifestyle that is my freedom. This lifestyle is my freedom. To move away from the lifestyle of my choice, of my preference, is to sort of self-victimize. It does not make the victim of theft is never culpable for what the thief then does with the stolen resources. And that's as clear as I can make it. And one of the examples I use is, let's say I own a dark alley in a scary area of the world. It is my alley. That alley is my property. I have a right to exist in that dark alley because it is mine. I have rightful control over it. And so I walk down my dark alley one night, and sure enough, somebody jumps out and robs me. And they steal my wallet and whatever. And they go and do terrible things with the money and whatever that they found in my wallet. It's my alley. I had a right to walk down it. It's my wallet. I didn't consent to them taking money. I don't even think I need to make that argument right now. I think people understand I'm not responsible for whatever that thief does with the contents of my wallet. Day 2, I walk down my alley again. Guess what? Same thief jumps out at the same spot and robs me again. Steals my wallet again, goes off and does terrible things with it again. Have the ethics of this situation changed at all? Absolutely not. It is still my alley. I still have every right to walk down that alley, and I still have every right to not have the contents of my wallet stolen from me. And I am still in no way responsible for the effects of whatever thief does with the resources he stole from me. Day 3, day 4, day 5, week 7, month 10, year 10, I walk down my alley again. Same thief steals again. Have the ethics changed? Not at all. The ethics don't change because I have a right to exist on my property and be secure in my property, not being stolen from me. Am I a dumbass for continuing to walk down my dark alley every day, continually getting stolen from, and not changing my behavior or doing something about the problem? Probably. Am I evil? Never. It is never my fault. So, where continuing to walk down that alley falls on that aesthetic spectrum between, fine, no one cares, and that's pretty dumb, shitty behavior, that's a subjective personal choice. And so that's where this discussion of sort of tax victimhood, you must change your life to avoid taxes, ends up. It's somewhere on that aesthetic thing. You don't get to attack people, obviously, for not changing their life to lower their tax victim liability status. But you have to sort of decide for yourself how bad that behavior is to you. For me, it's your alley. Walk down it every single day if you want. In fact, I'll probably offer to help you walk down it with some extra guns next time, if that's what it takes. For other people, for some reason, they've just decided that that's really, really crappy behavior. And if you can move out into the middle of the ocean and not pay any taxes, then that's good. Well, okay, this is just subjective opinion. So the point of this video was just to sort of make that point, that it's not a matter of morality. It's not a matter of doing something evil. It's not a matter of you being culpable for the effects of the government's immoral, consent-violating theft action. It's not evil. I think people should live their life as close to how they would live it in the absence of government as they can. And if that leads them to participating in activities or making life decisions or buying certain property or running certain businesses in a way that causes them, you can't even say it that way, it doesn't cause them to be stolen from more. It just puts them in a position where they will likely be stolen from more. You don't victim blame is the point. So I hope that was a useful topic. That was just something that's been stirring around in my head, and a lot of the agorists I talk to, we get into that discussion. So hopefully putting that discussion out there for all of you will be useful. Hey!